It's the return of the Volvo sedan with the Volvo ES90, and we are driving this one here for you today. See how good it drives, see how luxurious is it, and also what's the real world range. First test here today for you with Thomas Nautigefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with a very attractive exterior look, all the way closed here. Aurora silver is the color, some purple note to it, and the Thor's hammer daytime running light structure, matrix LED as the main headlamp. And let's directly take a look under the front hood, see if there is a trunk or not. That's always very interesting, of course. There we go. You have to unlock it here manually. It's a second unlock here. There we go. There's not too much space being held up by gas struts. This is like compressor equipment and so on. Yeah, maybe for a charging cable, but that's basically it. And yeah, to close it is actually quite tough to close it again. Gotta say that, you know, and yeah, always when you close the hood in the front, there's someone saying that you have done it the wrong way. That's, you know, you have to live with that as a car reviewer. Now we take a look at the side profile, which is the key thing for this vehicle. The length is 5 meters or 197 inches. Wheels from 20 to 22 inch. Let's see the option, the biggest wheels available, 22 inch. And you can still see that the ground clearance is not too low. So it sits relatively high for a sedan. 18 centimeters or 7 inches of ground clearance. So some might even say crossover sedan. It has an air suspension from the mid-trim level. Also has an additional lamination side windows. You can soon show it to you from mid-trim level. And the air suspension could also be pumped up for an off-road mode. But it's a very interesting profile here. It has somewhat an SUV crossover look right here. Then again, this floating design towards the rear looks very impressive, doesn't it? Either rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. The rear-wheel drive version we test for you first today, 6.6 seconds in the acceleration figure. All-wheel drive version, 5.5 seconds, or optional 4 seconds. And you've maybe seen it in our text inserts. Battery difference. So the rear-wheel drive version with the smaller battery, 82 kilowatt hours net, or the all-wheel drive version, the faster version, quicker version, that one with the 102 kilowatt hour net battery. Charging here, 11 kilowatt AC. DC charging is 310 or 350 kilowatt DC peak, and the small battery needs 22 minutes and the big battery 20 minutes from 10 to 80% state of charge. It's an 800 volt architecture. So overall good EV facts, and of course even more important, how efficient it will be in driving. In the rear, pretty cool design here with the vertical structure right here, also taken from the SUV models. Then this typical Volvo C-span here. So I really like the design. Is a very unique design for this sedan approach, and I can soon show you more trunk deals, but already that you know so far. Not sure why it sometimes doesn't do that. So here, this is like a fast back opening. So that's key, that it's not like a classic sedan with a small trunk opening, but you have the sedan styling on the exterior, yet you have this estate-alike flexibility from this estate trunk. Talking about the VMAX, by the way, top speed is 180 kilometers an hour or 112 miles per hour. You know that Volvo set themselves this limit here a while ago, also for their combustion engine models. Now towards the interior, which will be super exciting. There is the smartphone as key fob. That is the basic thinking here. I will do an extensive part about this idea and what could go wrong possibly soon after we have finished the interior. I have put it in a separate part because it's quite long and some stuff also happened. But more to that later. Here, first of all, so you approach the vehicle, then the door handles come towards you, or you press them here to close it. And also the mirrors fold in. Here I also have the classic mirrors. You can also see a camera here. So that looks really like, yeah, just attached on here. That's interesting. And then here, you would maybe hold the key card here if you use that, for example. Door closing sound. It's really solid. And in this case, there would also be a soft close mechanism. Pretty cool, right? And the rear, also nice sound, and as well soft close. Huh? There we go. And then inside of the doors, high grade leatherette here in black, nice that it doesn't reflect in the window. Matte wood is being used, optional Bowers & Wilkins sound system, soft here for your elbow. This is how you grab the door from the inside, by the way. Then also this is everything covered, I love that. Also this lower part here is soft. That's really rarely done. And then at least a rubber pad in the lower part from the bottom. Just this one is a little bit harder than, yeah, that would have been perfect if this one it was also like in bright felt or something like that. Then here, windows. It is the 2-window lever curse. Some love that actually, because I sometimes mistake the rear windows for the front one, and then this is this is basically without mistake. So you press the button here, like with Mercedes logic, and then you switch to the rear windows. What do you think about that? Tell me in the comments. And talking about the windows here, we have this lamination here. We have it in the front, where we have then this additional layer here for the insulation, and we also have it for the rear windows, and that starts, like with the air suspension, from the mid trim level, and then it's basically included. And I can already tell you, there will be a lot to say about this vehicle here as for the sound insulation soon when we hit the French motorway. Welcome to this interior. One of my favorite parts here, definitely, and especially in this light scheme. If you don't like a light interior, or say like, it's not good with the kids and so on, it's no problem. There's also black available. It would start with black Nordico or high-grade leatherette in black, bright, or in this cardamom brown, light brownish color. So 3 colors are available. And standard in the base, or here optional perforated, you can see it right here, and then it's also ventilated, so you have seat heating and seat cooling, so active ventilation that never gets hot on these seats. It's really great, and it feels really nice. It looks great with the perforation, and it's also really soft and plush. Good ergonomics. The only seats that are better in the EV segment at the moment are the BMW iX3. That's a little bit softer from the surface and also a little bit better from the ergonomics. But these are also at a very, very high level already. I really like them, and I mean, look at that styling. I just love it. Also here, the high-grade leatherette dashboard here, it feels really nice. And yeah, you don't have to use animals for that. You can get the same or even better quality meanwhile. Then here, matte wood. This is real wood, and it feels really nice as well. Good tactile feeling, small Swedish flag imprint like this. And the interior is really cleaned up. Most of the stuff is in the screen, yes. I like a physical climate unit. What we do at least have physical is here the volume controller in this crystalline style here in the lower part. And next song, previous song, for example, this is physical. Climate is, however, then digital, and also always in this 2-step scheme. You have to use the voice control otherwise, and also here for the seat cooling, for example. Controlling it while driving, you get used to it. Maybe not the best solution. Once again, some nice matte wood here. Also here on top of the cup holders, slide this open and you have adaptive cup holders. In the front there is the inductive charging pads, also with ventilation. And 2 USB-C chargers here on the back part. Is hard to see on camera. There we go. Also plush here for your armrest, really wide. You slide this open and you have all the space for your clutter, which you want to hide, for example, from the viewers, all the filming stuff, or additional cables and so on. For the glove box, you have to open it in the screen. On the one hand, it's a disadvantage. On the other hand, it's an advantage because it's automatically locked then if you're not logged in with the vehicle. So that's also a good thing. I also like this 2-tone scheme from the steering wheel. In this spec here, the vehicle is also completely animal free. Also the steering wheel feels nice, and also I love it that here you have the dark material on the outside that doesn't reflect in the screen. At the same time, you have your spectacular effect. So this vehicle is pricey, but it also looks pricey, and this is really a different level here from Volvo. I really love this interior. If I would get some manual climate knobs here, I would be 100% with it. But this is already really awesome. Optional Bowers & Wilkins sound system, 25 speakers together with the Gothenburg Concert Hall is one of my favorite sound systems in the industry as well. So extremely cool here. I really love it. And the driver POV here. This is 1-button design, but at least you have a good clicking feedback, so you know what you're actually doing. On the right side, the same thing. This would be for the voice input and so on. And here you need these buttons, for example, also when you want to adjust everything. Here, for example, the side mirrors. Then you have to press here and here and here, and then the side mirrors move accordingly like this. Yeah, I know it is safe to a user account. I still prefer the old way of adjusting it, honestly. Then the digital instruments with a map view or also a reduced view, or here the speed in the middle. And there's also a head-up display that is larger and not flickering than it appears. And if you wonder, in CarPlay with Apple Maps, here it also displays then Apple Maps on the left side. And it does not work with Google Maps and Apple CarPlay. That doesn't work. What we can try is if it also works, for example, with Waze. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, it's not good for the customer that it doesn't work with the Google Maps and Apple CarPlay. So usually the thing is not that the cars are not capable of doing that. It's more like the clash of Apple and Google, because then usually when you have Android Auto, then Google Maps works also in the instruments. However, here you have Google Maps built in anyway. So if you use then the car internal GPS, you also have Google Maps here on the left side, but not the one from your phone. And in the main infotainment, what's important as well here, glove box is here, and car features. Here, for example, you adjust then the mirrors and the steering wheel and so on. Roof shading also only here. And you can also deactivate this EU speed chime law right there. Other than that, you have here a main menu like this, or in the home menu, you have the inbuilt Google Maps, which is also really responsive. New hardware behind it that will also be retrofitted for EX90 customers, by the way, and also new software version. Now the rear luxury experience, that's super exciting. First of all, rear doors here also with a high-grade leatherette cover here on the top, and the matte wood insert in the bright side. It's really beautiful. Also the Bowers & Wilkins additional speakers here, 25 speakers. Then more covered here, everything really nice build quality. This is really awesome. Then only in the lower part, this is then the only hard part, but there's at least a rubber ground. And then here, this is the manual door release here, and here this for the window lever. And you can also electrically adjust the rear bench here, the back part. So it's a 2/3, 1/3 logic. I can also show that to you from the other side very soon. Then we have here also the perforated Nordico in the rear, also really plush and soft, nice ISOFIX outsides each. And then on this side, I can also then adjust the bench. You can see the difference here. Actually, I can put it more upright. This would also be then for a cargo position, that you have a little bit more trunk length in the upper part, or then the normal laid back position. The only problem here with electric vehicles, which we often have, is how the feet are placed in the vehicle, especially if you have long legs. Like here, you can see how high my feet are due to the battery placement below the vehicle. That is a strange position to sit in. It's still comfortable because the ergonomics and the seats and the material is really soft, and you have enough space here, leg room, although also, as I'm driving here, headroom here also to the top part is also okay, to the side, a little bit closer, but overall it's still nice and comfortable experience. But yes, of course, I would sit better if my feet could be a little bit lower. And that's something they haven't figured out with EVs yet. That's why also electric vehicles as SUV are also very, very popular, because then you have a higher building style and you sit higher from that rear bench in general. And then here, you can see it's relatively even floor, little hump in the middle, 2 USB-C chargers. Then there we go. 2 USB-C chargers right here. Then in the upper part we have a climate unit. You can adjust it yourself, and there's even seat cooling and seat heating available for the rear seats. Rarely do we have that, so that's pretty cool in this highest ultra trim. Yeah, really nice to have perforated ventilated seats for the rear. This is a luxury sedan alike, indeed. And talking about that, first of all, here once again also plush in the upper part. Here with the Nordico, you also have this bright contrast even for the rear seats here in the top head restraint area. Then you can pull down this here. The only thing is it's a little bit closer, so it always makes... That's the so-called leatherette fart. And then here, really wide middle console. You can open this one for more space. And in the top part, or in the front part here, this is like, once again, the matte real wood. Really beautiful. You can hear that. It's just a beautiful sound, definitely. And then you can press this button and the cup holders come up. Wow. Also here, a little bit adaptive. I love that feature, you know, and then you pull it down like this. That's amazing. So I'm really in love with this rear, especially also here. Once again, matte wood accentuations in the back part of the seats. And this is there, then when you say like, okay, maybe it's still worth the price, this vehicle here. It is very expensive. Later on more to the price, but that's pretty cool. With the only exception that, you know, I'm rather sitting like this, although I have a lot of space in general, you know, so that's the only thing. I would also leave this one down if you're just driving in the front alone, or maybe with two in the front, because then you have some visibility here to the rear. If you put this one here up, there's the head restraint, and then there's basically zero visibility to the rear. So still leave this one down. And then here talking about the panoramic roof, it's a fixed panoramic roof. However, there is this dimming available. The heat protection is inside. So the dimming does not decide about the heat protection, but you can see here, this is this dimming function. If you want to have it more in this shade style, not that bright in the interior, maybe when it's a really sunny day, there you can see the difference. Always looks cool with this electrochrome function. The manufacturers call it electrochrome, by the way. I also saw some comments from viewers that they say it's not really electrochrome in the technical sense, because that would be rather like it's reflecting from the outside. Not an expert in this. Maybe one of you is an engineer in that field and can elaborate more in the comments about that. And now let's check out the trunk or the boot and also measure it. 425 liters. Doesn't sound too much, but how usable is it? Here, this one also fits in vertically easily. And the cool thing is indeed that you have this fastback-alike trunk. By the way, if you are searching for the measures, it's also right on top here for the next IKEA visit. It also says the measures of the trunk. Of course, hard to read on camera. It's also interesting here, this cover here lifts automatically, but you can also remove it like this, that you have also visibility to the trunk then. And this is here an additional floor mat, either with a soft surface or turn it around, and then you have here this rugged surface, so both is possible. And if you remove it completely, you can see here, you have here then also possible to lift it up, and there could also be a cable storage underneath, so that's also possible. You can also lower the whole trunk then with the air suspension. That works as well. The height I'll measure already right here. So this is here a maximum height of 24 inches or about 62 centimeters. I put this mat again, it doesn't get too complicated overall. So here we go. And then the width is about 1 meter or 40 inches, a little bit more actually. And the standard length is also about 1 meter or 40 inches. And then, yeah, bikers know where to drive properly. Here you can see, I cannot fold from here. This is just like here, like additional bag hanger, for example, but there's no remote release for the seats. I can reach over, for example, for the ski hatch and then push this through. This does work. And also slightly reach over here. This could also work. There we go. And then, for example, here, 2/3, 1/3, but you can see individual. Also, you have these covers here. You can push down a little bit like this, and then the total length to the front seats is it's almost a full ruler. So like 1 meter 95 or 77 inches. So it is well usable. Yeah, here you see here again the view is kind of limited from the front to the rear, that you can already see right here. And this one, of course, you could also remove. About opening or closing the vehicle is a very important thing. So Volvo does not supply a real classic key fob anymore. Many manufacturers do the same and move over to smartphone integration. And you can argue for it when you say, hey, you have your smartphone with you anyways, then you have the access on your smartphone as well, and that's a good thing, is coming handy, and you then maybe don't need a special key fob or so. However, I'm always a friend of having a backup plan. So here at this moment I have like the key to the vehicle on the wallet here in the iPhone. That would be my access to the vehicle, and I can also control the app from here. Then Volvo supplies, let's say, a backup card which would work with like holding it directly at the door, and then you have to place it physically into the vehicle. The phone usually you just leave in your pocket. So far so good. But some call me paranoid when I'm taking extra measures, for example, also when we do our, maybe this doggo as well, or maybe he agrees to me, because when we leave everything in the vehicle, I always have a window lowered. Just in case, because manufacturers always say, the car will never close itself when the key is in the vehicle. It will never do that. And we always hear that from manufacturers. And we always hear these systems work 100%. And then later on it turns out that the next day they hand out the normal key fobs, just to be safe, you know, because something happened. And the same happened here. So I was leaving everything in the vehicle, my own smartphone, the backup key card, the phone, everything in the vehicle, because, you know, I don't want to have like two phones all over the place, my personal phone and then here this car phone here, which would be just one phone in your personal use, but here for the test vehicle it's then two phones. But I said, just in case. And I was just standing here, everything was inside the vehicle, and I said, I want to, you know, get something out of the vehicle. In that moment, the vehicle closed itself. And it's closed, it's done. If in that case, the window would be up, everything would be in the car, the phone, the backup card, my own smartphone, I could call no one and our day would be over. And I have no idea what I've done here. So I can just plead to you once again, never leave the car with the key inside. Always get it out, even if it's just like, you know, shortly, or even if everyone is around, or at least lower one window that you can access the car. And never trust these digital smartphone solutions only. Always carry some kind of backup with you. If it's maybe a small key fob, which is still supplied with the car. If it's the backup key card, always go for one backup, definitely. Just do it. They do offer one more thing here with Volvo. You can order from accessory, not by standard, like a small dongle. It's not a real key fob, you cannot press anything there, but it serves basically the same purpose like the smartphone then. So you can also just put it in your pocket, or maybe like as an activity key when you do go some sports or something like that. So that would be another option they offer. First, acceleration. And that was 30 to 100 kilometers an hour with the rear-wheel drive model. It's time to start driving the Volvo ES90. Volvo is back with a large sedan, in this case the electric one, and we're gathering information and driving impressions in the city, also on the motorway here in southern France today for you. And we're starting here with some city traffic too. It's often here like around the Nice area. There's a lot of traffic here, airport area, and often some like, you know, scooters and everything, and it can be hectic. But the first very important point, that's why I'm starting with this one here, is yes, you have a large vehicle, 5 meters, 97 inches. And although there's like sometimes tight traffic here, not going around, you are super relaxed. This is the main thing about this vehicle. You immediately realize we have here the dual insulation of the windows, this lamination, both front and the rear. You have the air suspension from the mid-trundle, which we also have in here. We're driving the rear electric motor, only the rear-wheel drive only model. So we're soon also going to show you the acceleration. And the air suspension is evening out everything really nicely, although we have 22-inch wheels mounted, which I would never recommend, because when you go for smaller wheels, you just have more comfort. Still, so far, because you have the air suspension here, it's evening that one out very, very well, like that. Wow, super smooth experience. As for letting go of the throttle, you have different modes available. I can let go and just keep rolling, or I can switch it to the auto. Then, for example, when there would be a vehicle in front of me, like a adaptive cruise control somewhat, but for the recuperation. then it would reduce the speed, otherwise it rolls. Or I go to the one pedal mode, then you have the typical EV one pedal driving effect. So I rather use the accelerator pedal, and as soon as I lift it, there is a strong deceleration. That's what I'm in at this moment. And then, for example, for this roundabout here, I'm approaching that here, strong recuperation. You have to learn to use it, not to put too much stress on your passenger, which is another Thomas today, by the way. Tommy is with us here today, double Thomas attack. Best greetings also from Leah, of course. She is relaxing at home today, and yeah, she really earned that after so much work. Definitely, she'll be back next video. So here with the one pedal driving, really be gentle with the throttle pedal, or if you prefer that, like I honestly prefer that the car keeps rolling. I tend to drive a little bit more efficient with that, and then use the brake if needed. It also gives me a little bit more, just more interaction with the vehicle, but it's just on your personal preference, what you really like. There is no special acceleration mode. There's a normal mode and there's an off-road mode, so there's no special mode which you can turn in for a better acceleration or something like that. What you can do is, when you are, it's actually here in the drive modes, yeah, it's shouldn't do that while driving, definitely, with the big screen. You can change the steering feel, because this setting here, Leah would love that. It's really, really soft, extremely soft. You have almost zero feeling for the vehicle because you are steering in thin air. You can also set the steering wheel to firm, or the steering feel, or the steering wheel feel to firm. And in this case, you have a little bit more feedback. I wouldn't say that it conveys great feeling for the vehicle. The goal of this vehicle is not necessarily to have a connected driving feeling. It is more, let's say, let the car do its thing and you are a passenger. And it is pro and con. If you're driving BMW, you might say like, hey, I want to be like more engaged in the vehicle, and that's fine. And here the goal is more, you are a passenger of this luxury sedan, and fair enough to do it that way. I prefer a little bit more steering engagement, but I can also understand if they do it this way here, maybe to get a different target group, definitely. But with the firm setting, it's definitely better. It's, let's say, enough feedback for me. I would leave it like this. Suspension feel, you can also set to firm, because this is here the adaptive air suspension. And then you notably feel, some uneven parts in the road and so on. So I would just actually leave that to soft, because even if you do a lane change here, a little bit quicker, even if you're in a soft setting, the car does not shake up. So this is an air suspension where you still feel it is an air suspension. I think it's very important, because in the recent years, or maybe even the decade, we have got to know a lot of vehicles with air suspension where you don't feel anymore that's an air suspension, because the suspension then is trimmed too harsh. And then I say, what do you need the air suspension for? You need, or you want, an air suspension to get this soft, floaty feeling. And that's what you get here also still in the Volvo ES90. And I really appreciate that, Then you have also the nice ergonomics of the seats and the nice soft Nordico high-grade leather red. It's quite warm today with the sun, so we can have the cooling activate, the ventilation of the seats. So there's no need to go for the animal skin option here as well. So it's a round comfort package with this great insulation here now at about 90 kilometers an hour, like 55 miles an hour, and trucks right and left in the middle of the lane here, a little bit of a construction site, temporary thing on this road. And we're still super relaxed. It's extremely silent. Air suspension is evening things out and so on. Yeah, I'm really positively impressed by this vehicle in driving it. Again, it is not a sporty machine, but considering that it has this strong comfort focus, it doesn't, there's like the speed camera, it's best greetings there. It doesn't disappoint in the dynamics in a way of, hey, it would shake up too much or something, So that's what I meant again here when I'm at 90 and then do a quick lane change. It's still fun to do that, and the car doesn't become uncontrollable because it would be shaking and so on. So that's very important. I also picked this motorway here before we go up into the mountains to have a good average consumption for you guys, because it's very important to measure that when there's not a big topographic change to be very reliable. We can also check out some of the assistance systems, and you pull down this one here like Tesla styling, and then you also have an active lane keeping assist. Let's see how it does it. The EX90, the SUV brother, had problems with it. There were software upgrades. Now they get a hardware upgrade, which is retrofitted also to existing customers. And the ES90 directly starts with this new hardware chip behind it. Then, of course, a new software version. And this really helps because now you have all systems activated which are supposed to be in that vehicle. And here you can see it is following the lane. It is a very narrow lane, and there's a lot going on around us. Next Tesla Model Y overtaking us here on the left. There's also blind spot monitor, the red triangle in the side mirror. Very good to see that, very good to have that, definitely. And so far, I think it's a very good application of the assistance systems here. You know, now we can zoom drive a little bit quicker, 110. I can also do quick acceleration when we have the chance to. There's no one more overtaking. But this was my first point here. This is really, really accurate. It's not too much overcorrecting, and we know that from the Volvo assistance systems, they have been overcorrecting a lot. And also with the combustion engine hybrid models. And I kind of feel this is the best application for Volvo assistance systems yet. Honestly, gotta say that, and that's a good surprise, definitely. So, what about some 90 to 110? Let's go. Oh, that's it. Nice, a good acceleration. I mean, it's 6.6 seconds in the acceleration figure for the rear-wheel drive model. Of course, with this smaller battery, which is at 88 kilowatt hours net here. 92 is the gross figure, whereas you have 102 kilowatt hours net with the bigger battery. So here, smaller battery, you have less weight. That's a good thing. You know? So for the driving limits and for the consumption, that is a good thing. However, I would suspect that for 5,000 euros extra, when you compare like ultra trim to ultra trim, then you have to pay 5,000 euros extra for the big battery. Most customers will probably then also pick the big battery, just to be safe, to have more range and so on. And we will continue driving this 110 kilometers an hour here because that's what we can do in France here today. At a later stage, of course, I would like to redo a test on the German Autobahn, go like 130, maybe even quicker, top speed 180 kilometers an hour, 112 miles per hour, also test that. But even here at 110 kilometers an hour, like 65 miles an hour, it's still really relaxing and super silent, you know. So that's pretty cool, you know. So I know there are a lot of EV skeptics out there, and I would just say, like, take a test ride and see for yourself, because the concept here fits, you know. The whole experience fits, and especially with Volvo, they haven't convinced us with great engines in the last decade, you know. There's always a 2-liter 4-cylinder. They consume quite a lot of fuel. They are not very powerful. So especially Volvo is not losing much when they go electric, you know what I mean? So if you think about like a BMW 3-liter 6, inline 6 or something, then you say, okay, you know, I love to drive that engine, you know. But here it's definitely a better experience with driving the electric version. The rear electric motor, always the stronger one. If you have the all-wheel drive model, front-wheel drive will also be added, basically. Then it's the weaker one. And also a change now. Imagine I would have the all-wheel drive model and I'm just cruising. Then the front electric motor now is being uncoupled. With the EX90 SUV, it was the rear one. They changed this logic now, and the front then is uncoupled when it's not being used. And if you go for the performance option, both front and rear get a higher software tune. Yeah, for 5,000 euros. They just turn the software up, and then you have even more power there. But I can just say, again, this is such a smooth driving experience. I love that combination of insulation, silence in the cabin, air suspension, ergonomics of the seats. Yeah, their BMW is, for example, in the iX, still a little bit better. They have even better comfort. because they have the benchmark of comfort in the seats, both ergonomics and also as for the softness of the high-grade leatherette. But this one here is already at a very good level, and I could very well imagine just, you know, keep on cruising with this one here. So that's a very, very nice and pleasant, calm experience. And we want to test the dynamic driving capabilities. Let's go. Oh, that was 20 to 80, and now we hit it through some corners. There we go. Yeah, so you can just repeat. Steering wheel, although I have set it here to firm, I really need to check that if I have really set it to firm. It's still not the most responsive one, so you don't have the best feeling for the vehicle. Once again, the luxury experience is being focused. Very soft again from the air suspension, but that doesn't shake up. But indeed, from the sporty driving characteristics, yeah, the least fun thing is the steering feel, because even if it is a little bit firmer, it still doesn't give you a feeling of what's happening on the road. So let's say the steering is in dynamic driving disconnected from the car, but the suspension, although it is so soft, is holding up very well. So surprised about that, positively surprised that this one does deliver you a sporty driving experience suspension wise. At the same time, yeah, very good, and yeah, very good comfort both, and sporty experience. So great suspension here, gotta say that. But as for the steering feel, it will not give you the sportiest driving fun. However, it still handles very well. It also has the low center of gravity, you know, batteries in the lower part of the vehicle. And here, of course, in these kind of driving situations, it also helps if you have the little bit smaller battery. And I mean, we have the rear electric drive only here, and that of course, you know, helps us also to push the car out of the corners. However, if you have the all-wheel drive, you have better performance, and the rear motor is still the stronger one. So what about efficiency, rear-world range, and the prices, of course? So as for the real-world range test, we did a test here on the motorway, southern France. More like maximum 110 kilometers an hour, so like 65 miles an hour. We did some accelerations though as well, but temperature-wise, pretty warm, good conditions for an EV, for a good efficient consumption. We ended up with about 17 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers, so 3.6 miles per kilowatt hour. That would mean with the small battery here today, rear-wheel drive, we would score some, yeah, almost 500 kilometers, 300 miles of real-world range in that test. If we go for the big battery, it would even be rather 600 kilometers or 370 miles. This again, however, with the speed cap. So once again, I would probably need to redo this test then one more time at like 130 kilometers an hour, 75, 80 miles an hour on the German Autobahn, driving a little bit quicker, and see about that. Considering we had limited speed, I would say it could be a little bit more efficient, but of course even more thorough tests in the future will show us even more there. Then about the pricing, it starts about 70,000 euros or 70,000 pounds. That's what we already know so far. But if you then spec the vehicle like it is here with some extra equipment, you can easily add about 20,000 euros and you achieve something 90,000 euros. If you want the big battery, from the Ultra trim to the Ultra trim, small to big battery, 5,000 euros difference, but you have to add even more. And the performance model all-wheel drive would then add another 5,000 euros. So a top spec all-wheel drive, big battery, highest trim would then even be towards 100,000 euros. So tell me, what do you think actually? Would this price be worth it for this vehicle here? The strong focus, definitely the comfort, good air suspension. I love the suspension. That was my favorite thing here today, definitely. And also that it's very silent on the interior, at least at the speeds that we have been testing. So tell me, what do you think about the Volvo ES90? And now it's time to compare some of the competitors.